What's up, everybody? Hello. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer.
I'm Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker.
And this is episode number 63.
63. We had to figure that out before we got on here because we've been in recording mode.
Yeah, we've been taping a bunch and in a very compressed amount of time.
Yes, which we're just basically abandoning our families for like a week or two at a time, going into a dark place.
I sent a note.
Filming. Yeah.
I sent a note the other day and then, just to let them know we were all right.
Let them know. You know, funny note story. I have to tell you this. So the band Three Doors Down, I'm sure you've heard of Three Doors Down before.
I am well aware.
The song Superman, right?
Yeah, like the only one that,
Yeah. When I was in fifth grade, I used to write notes on the table, the kitchen table where I was going. And it was like, one to Mike's house, be back, later. And
sure.
One of the notes I put, I took a walk around the world to ease my troubled mind. And I put that on the table when I was 10. And my parents were like, where the hell are you?
They're like, this kid's emo.
It was bad. I'll never forget doing that. And I know they listen to this show and my mom's going to be like, yeah, that was, we had a moment. But
also, what a moment in time where you were like, I just wrote a note and told people where I was.
That's things.
And then we left.
Things haven't changed much at all since then. I think nothing's evolved.
We have a thing. We can just tell people.
We can just tell them. Yes, but it is episode 63. We're pumped. It is miserable in Milwaukee right now.
Yeah.
And we were going to do this podcast outside and we couldn't. So,
yeah, there was that plan. That definitely didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
But you know what? The great thing about this is I believe this is new territory for us. We've done one international show before.
Oh, I was going to say we are now a global podcast and I forgot about the other international show. So we are, as a reminder, we are a global podcast. Yeah. That's what I meant to say.
We have never been more global though, because we are not even on this continent today.
No, we're not. And it's also Wednesday, kind of. As we record this for the person we're recording it for, which was wildly confusing to intro this because it's actually Monday. Let's move on.
The logistics of this time of setting this timing up was not great.
No, they weren't.
Today we have a guest. We have Braith Bamkin, who is the head executive director over at BNI in Melbourne, Australia. And then he is also a speaker. He's a writer. He's got a book out. He's a coach.
Serial entrepreneur. I meant to say entrepreneur. I'm losing it.
He's podcasting too. He's in a lot of podcasts. So anyway, it is our evening and it is his morning. And that was very difficult for me to figure out in our scheduling. But Braith, good morning over there.
Good morning.
From the evening over here. How are you doing?
I am... I'm laughing so much already. I've got to say, I have been so looking forward to coming on your show. I've done a lot of podcasts lately, but I have never, ever had such cool dudes invite me on. I feel like I'm in your lounge room. And it is morning for me. And I'm on the other side of the world. I'm in Cairns or Palm Cove and it's hot and it's sunny. And isn't this wild? It's so
I
cool.
love it. And a thing that Alan and I have never been accused of is being cool. So we are making history today. And I am vibing with that.
I'll take that. It is.
But you can take that as a soundbite. That's a soundbite.
Yeah, pop up. We need the captions on that too.
Yeah.
Just ensure.
So it is rainy and miserable here, but you said it's warm and sunny over in Melbourne. Thank God.
Well, I'm not in Melbourne.
Yeah. Oh, you're not in Melbourne?
I'm really lucky. I have two places. I have a place in Melbourne, but I also have a place in far north Queensland in a place called Palm Cove, which is near Cairns, which is the Great Barrier Reef. So when it's cold, because it's cold in Melbourne, I'm like, I'm out of here. And I'm up in Palm Cove enjoying the sun.
Okay. So Great Barrier Reef. So
yes.
Northern Queensland. Is that what you said?
That's right. Yeah. Right.
Okay. My knowledge of Australian geography is limited exclusively to surf videos and the Aussie rules football. I know. So I know, like we get on Thursday mornings here on Fox Sports. Occasionally you'll get the Aussie rules footy, but it'll be on at like 4 a.m. our time.
All right.
So
in my knowledge of Australia is limited to the movie Kangaroo Jack from like 2004. So I am just with all things Australia related.
All I know is that I'm supposed to cheer for the Collingwood Magpies.
No.
Sydney Swans. Very Sydney Swans fan.
Oh no. You got Sydney Swans. Collingwood's okay. Sydney Swans is the way to go.
Oh, we can both agree we hate Port Adelaide, right?
We can agree on that.
Okay, those are like the three teams I knew.
Alan is thrilled that you are. This is the first time Alan's done homework before.
Yes. Oh, and the Australian Open. I know the Australian Open the Sydney Opera House. That is my extent of Australia.
That's good enough for me.
But we're not
I'm right up the top. I'm right up the top here. You can't go surfing because the Crocs will get you. But it's
okay.
It's a nice place.
That's great.
Well, that is good to know. I'm going to learn so much. We are not a geography podcast.
No, math or geography.
Good reason.
Are two probably worse things for me, at least.
So we are a side hustling and business podcast. So tell us a little about your history and what brought you up to this point, and now in having two places in beautiful North Queensland.
Well, look,
I say it every time I get it right.
That's right.
You probably can't tell from if you're listening to this, you can't tell at all. But if you're watching this, you wouldn't know. I've been around for a long time, and I started in a real grown-up job in the 80s. And my first boss told me in the 80s, so that's how old I am, that if you want to be successful in this business, you've got to learn how to network. And I'm like, that wasn't even a word back then. Like, we didn't have computers back then. Like, faxes were new. It was like, that's a fax. And we used to stand there at the fax machine and watch it come out. It was so cool. Anyway, I've been networking since the 80s. And, I did some time in corporate, it sounds like a sentence, which it was to me. And I got out, and I've been in small business for a long time. And I joined BNI as a member 15 years ago. Loved it, made a lot of money as a member out of BNI, became a director ultimately, and then decided to buy the franchise in Melbourne. It's been a wild ride. So over the last 15 years, I've just helped thousands of people to really grow their businesses. And, I think that if you've got a business that can help your ego be met in a really productive way, you've got a good business, right? So, I get to help people all day, every day. And then out of that, I got asked to do speaking gigs all the time. And, I was really scared. I can't speak. But, that's become like a thing all of its own. And, I have online programs as well, because there's only one of me and I can share stuff really well. So, I do a lot of stuff, but that's me in a nutshell.
What was the networking like at that time when you're not adding anyone on LinkedIn? You're not are you just exchanging honestly, are you exchanging just office numbers? Is that what you're doing? And then you
well, yeah, there's this thing that's called a business card.
And so that was the vibe for the most part, I imagine.
Well, back in the 80s, there was a lot of parties in the 80s because it was good times in the 80s. A lot of events and a lot of drinking. And Australia was going through a bicentenary in 1988, so it was a good time to be in Australia. But people used to exchange business cards, and as I said, faxes were a thing, and there was no mobile phones back then. And so you would meet up. That's what you did. You'd say, let's meet up for lunch, and this will crack you up. You used to send people a letter inviting them to have lunch with you. A letter like snail mail. People used to send that, and you arrange it for 4 weeks out. But the mail went fast in those days. It's not like it is today. It was you get it in 2 days.
Right. I do want to say, for those that don't know, could you tell us a little bit about what BNI is and what it does? Just so cool. Playing catch up for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Look, so BNI has been around since 1986. It's the world's oldest and largest professional networking organization. So people join as members and they go along to a weekly meeting, and through that meeting, they learn to build trust with each other. And when you trust people, you are willing to open up your network and to refer people. So by going to a weekly meeting, you learn more about the people that you're hanging out with in your chapter. And then when you feel comfortable to open your network, you can refer them to people that you know. And then over time, as that trust builds, you start to get second and third tier referrals. And it's a really cool way of building relationships with people that want to help you. And, I think now more than ever, people want to hang out with people. COVID really made it. What was the first thing you did when, in Melbourne, we were locked away for 2 years. The first thing we all did, I opened the door, we went out and we hung out with people, right? So you hang out with people. That's what we do. And so, I didn't know when COVID happened whether, BNI would survive, but it just thrived because now people are desperate to be proximate with other human beings. They love it. That's what we're wired for. So I think it's really important that an organization like BNI is out there to help people build personal relationships. And, now more than ever, we need to hang out with humans.
For sure. Tell me a little bit how you got started there, because I would think that, we've done a bonus episode before on networking, and that initial phase of doing it, we were both in college and both thinking like, just nervous kids, like trying to talk to everyone in the room. Tell us about your first experiences and how that led to BNI.
All right. Well, look, you asked a good question. What was it like back then in the 80s? For me, it was spray and pray. Like you just would meet as many people as you could. You'd throw your business card out, and there was not a lot of strategy to it. I knew that you wanted to get people around you that had a similar target market so that you could sort of help each other. I kind of knew that. My boss gave me that idea, but it took me a really long time, like 20 odd years, to work out that less is more. You just cannot duplicate yourself 1,000 times over. So you've really got to work out where to invest your time. And so once I learned that in the 90s, I went to New Zealand for that company I worked for. And I rocked up. I was a commercial textiles for architects and designers. And I rocked up in New Zealand with a bag full of samples and a Yellow Pages. And you're probably too young to know what Yellow Pages is, but for well, I just tell people it's paper Google. So it's paper Google.
Good way to describe it.
Yeah, and I would look through that for connections. But what I realized is that there were a lot of other suppliers around that worked with the same target market. So I would get those people together and would have a regular lunch meeting. And then what I realized, and this was before I even had heard of BNI, was when you help other people and you genuinely try to help make their business more successful, there is this unspoken law of reciprocity that human beings want to help you back. And if you've ever done any volunteer work, the more you volunteer, the more you get back. It's like you can't give enough of yourself to get back what you feel you get back. And networking is the same. If you help people, you really help people to succeed in your business and expect nothing back, because that's the key to it. Because if you have an expectation, they can smell that. If you do it genuinely because you want to help, then you will get it come back in spades. But it's a function of time. Like people now have this expectation that everything's going to be like that's happen now, happen now, happen now. But this is about farming, right? And it's not about hunting. Like there's a lot of bro marketers out there saying, hey, get on my thing and I'm going to grow your followers by 2 million. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Like you can get 2 million followers. I could get you 2 million followers. It's not hard. But what you want is connections. And connections with people who are going to do business with you. And that's really the key to quality networking, is to build deep and meaningful relationships, because you don't need a lot of people in your network to get you really good quality business. Because when you know who you want to do business with, and you can explain it to the people that you're networking with really, really well, it is coming to you. It is coming to you a lot and fast. And that is the key to it.
Yeah. Now, I know you mentioned, this is like the good example of like, follow this and you'll get 2 million more followers. Like, I feel like I see that stuff pop up all the time. And I have to imagine, with you being in an industry for a long time, like how have you seen that evolve so much of like the kind of pure play of networking where people are actually wanting to help versus sort of like a quote unquote scam or something that's just like different? Like, is that like, how have you navigated that? Like do people trust what you do, and how do you really validate the work that you pour your time into?
So the first thing because people ask me all the time, hey, have you seen and insert, bro marketer? And there's a lot of them out there. And I'm not saying they're bad. There's something for everyone. But I always say to people, if it feels like BS to you, it probably is. And you can feel it. And really good marketing organizations attract people who are going to follow their message. And if you're doing the dance of the desperate, and you'll chuck money at anyone that says I'll solve your problem without you doing any due diligence, they're talking to you. They know how to trigger you. They know exactly what to say to trigger you. They know exactly what you want. They know exactly the problems you're facing, and they'll talk to those problems and they will make you feel like they're the only person that can solve what's going on for you. But I would say to anybody that the best way to work out whether you want to work with someone is whether you feel an affinity for their product. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot of stuff around values in business and vision. And one of the hottest trends in marketing at the moment is personalization. And if you aren't really clear about your vision and your business, and you don't know what your values are, you're not going to bring your potential clients on for that journey. So if your marketing doesn't speak to that and you're not in alignment with your value and your vision, these days people can click and go away really, really quickly. So you've got to be very clear about what you stand for, and your entire brand proposition has got to align with that. So, back in the day, you used to have like brand guidelines. Now people talk about brand voice. So you've got to know what's your tonality. Like I have a brand voice that my team work to. So they know how I speak. They know the words that I use. They know the imagery that I like. I've got, colors, logos and all of that, but there's a whole tonality to everything that I do. And, if anyone's using AI, if you don't know your brand voice and you just plug stuff into AI, you're going to get a random response, right? But if you tell it what tone, what your brand voice is, who your target market is, who your audience is, it's going to give you something a lot more relevant. So, I love AI, I use it all the time, but I'm very clear with it, who I'm talking to and how I want to talk to them. Yeah. That was a very long-winded answer to your question, which
I love it. I love it.
But it's fascinating though, because this is actually something that I've thought about with, really the way that I communicate with people. So as we've kind of said too about like, oh, you can smell when something just doesn't seem. Is why I'm not on LinkedIn messaging at all anymore, really, because I know that like the whole platform is corrupted with tons of people being like, hey, let me see how I can help your business. I can see how whatever. And you know what it is. You know what I mean? Most of the time it's buy my thing, buy my whatever, XYZ. Right. But when you talk about a brand message and having a personal brand kind of really built around it, I know what I'd like to give off to the world. When I message somebody, like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to be that guy. And I'm not trying to hit you with the marketing speak, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I know that that's kind of my thing. And I, like, to your point, I can tell when it's not their thing and they're trying to just put words out there into the world. So like, it is really something that I've thought about, even when I just communicate with other businesses about, hey, I'd love to have you advertise on our site. I'd love to have you do whatever, or work with you on whatever. Like, I try to cognitively like avoid the marketer speak, because that's what I want to give off into the world. So
100%. Like, you've got to be the authentic version of you. And for your audience, I know a lot of people who are new in business, they think they've got to be something that they're not. I tell you what, the best thing you've got going for you in your business is you. That is your thing. And if you aren't your authentic you are never going to get the traction that you deserve, because you are the only version of you. You are solving a problem because you are you, and you've got this side hustle going on and you've got something to share with the world. If you're your authentic you, the people who want that problem solved by you, they're going to follow you. If you're fake you, people are going to leave you, and or they'll join you and they won't stay, because you want them to be sticky. If they're not sticky, you got to spend a lot of money getting new people in all the time, but you want people to be sticky, right?
Yeah, you want the authentic version of yourself.
I'm going to go ahead and sort of disagree with it.
No,
okay,
right.
no, this is
the fake version, the fake Jim.
Jim's his whole talk is about being authentically himself.
Right. That's what I give a keynote on that. So everything you just said is
cool.
very, very in line, and it's true. And people don't relate to a perfect version of what you think you are. They relate to the authentic version of you. That's it. People relate to imperfect, because we all are. And call out mistakes and just enjoy and use your own flair to do it. But that's what I speak about is doing that. And, particularly the students, but really anyone, of course, who will listen. Give me a microphone, and which is usually a bad idea, but here we are. But it's so true. And I think, it's a lost art sometimes in business, and particularly like in a corporate world. It's difficult to keep that part of yourself, because you feel like I think a lot of times, especially people, people who are maybe in higher up levels, like feel like they're supposed to be something else. Like they're
Right.
supposed to be more professional. It's like, no, you're not. Like you're supposed to just do your thing, and that's why
Yeah.
you're in this role. You're in this role because you got picked to do it. So it's important, and a lot of people forget that. So
Yeah.
it's a really good mindset.
I reckon a lot of your audience are probably in jobs that they don't like, and I've worked out over the years the majority of people don't like their jobs, not because the stuff they're doing is not interesting. It's because they don't align their values and what's important to them, to the organization. Because if you are all in alignment, you are sailing through that slipstream and everything is easy. Even if the tasks can be crappy, you can get past crappy tasks if you have a shared vision that you're all heading in the right direction. So I reckon a lot of your audience are like, they have cognitive dissonance between what's going on in the organization and who they are as a person. And they're going, hey, I've got something else I want to share with the world and with my side hustle. And that's when they've got to be their authentic self. So the takeaway you've got to be is, if you don't want to feel like that in your side hustle, you've got to be you. And I love the fact that you talk about that, Jim, because
that's a good point. And I would add one more spot to that, like for like employers, who have folks that feel sort of like a dissonance of the people they're working with. What I found is that my employer supports my side hustle, like very much so. And it makes me feel more empowered to then do the work. And I make the two things align really well. And I love what I do in both worlds, but that's something I'm very open about what I do. Like I was, sending people a video of this past weekend. They're like, that's awesome. And everyone wants to know about that part of my life. And then it makes me like, well, this is great. They appreciate it. My old employer was not like that. It was not a welcome thing to do that. And I kind of kept under wraps, and it felt like I was hiding a big part of what I do and kind of my being. And so I just put a couple of quotes onto an article for Forbes. I got reached out to talk about side hustles, and I put that in there. And I was like, if you can support more of what people want to do outside of this, you're going to find they're going to be more engaged in what they do inside of your world, because they feel that level of support and ability to do so. So
I didn't know that you got that article. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was on behalf of Manpower Group, but it was a cool kind of thing. And I was like, because it's like, why do people want to do this? And it's because like they have passions outside 9 to 5, and that's a good thing. We should be supporting that, because it will make them feel more engaged and empowered in what they're doing.
Did you tell them afterwards to subscribe to the podcast?
I did. I said right to 5 stars.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
But let's switch into your world of speaking of the book. Like, tell us a little bit about how you got started in some of these, being a serial side hustler, and what this road has been like for you.
Well, like the book is actually, the book is not something I really aimed to make a thing. It just happened because years ago I was like mega stressed out as a business owner. I wasn't aligned with my business partner. We were like, not in the same direction, and that was okay, but I wasn't saying what I wanted. So I wasn't being honest with myself. And so I was feeling really, am I allowed to swear on this? PO'd.
Go ahead.
And so and it was affecting me. And eventually a couple of years of that breaks you down, right, physically. And I was on a flight. I was actually flying from Miami to Bogota in Colombia overnight. And I got a Bell's palsy happen overnight, which is a facial paralysis. And it's kind of funny. I knew something weird was happening because I was trying to eat my food and the food was falling out of my mouth and going, that's not normal. And so I get to Bogota first thing in like 5 a.m. in the morning, and my face is looked like a Salvador Dali painting. And so I went straight to the hospital, which was like a really amazing experience. Sunday morning in Bogota at the main hospital is like, that is crazy stuff. Like they've got guards with machine guns, and it's not just to keep the crazy people out, it's to keep you in until you've paid your bill, because they're not letting you out that door until you've paid your bill. It's wild. But the other part was, of course, everything's in Spanish, and, Australians don't have a good grasp of Spanish, but thank goodness for Dr. Google. My partner and I were working out what was happening, and, we managed to get stuff happening. But when I came back from that, part of my rehab was to do laughter yoga. Have you ever come across laughter yoga before?
No.
It's a thing, guys. You've got to get into it. It's the coolest thing ever. It is the coolest. It's like it's laughing for the sake of laughing, and it's the coolest thing. Anyway, so I started my journey on that. I ended up loving it so much I became a laughter yoga instructor. There is a 5-day course to teach you how to laugh. Let me tell you that this is serious business. So I loved it so much.
It's serious business.
It is.
It's serious business, right? So I did that, and then that's the gateway to breath work. I did some breath work practitioner training, and I didn't do it for anyone else. I only did that for me because I had my own stuff going on in my business, but it was really helping me in my life. And then people were saying to me all the time, oh, like, what's this laughter thing? Because I was posting on the socials and, what's this breath work? And you look really happy. And, I'd sorted out my stuff with my business partner and life was good. And people could see that I'd changed. And they're like, what's going on? Like, I'm going, oh, well, I'm doing this breathwork stuff and laughter yoga and mindfulness. And they're like, what's this? And because I look like this and I don't look like I've just walked off some commune, people kind of like take it seriously. Like, not that I'm saying people who walked off a commune aren't serious, but like business people relate to me, right? Because I'm kind of this middle-aged white dude, which, not often these days where we get taken seriously. And I started helping people because that's my nature. And it just started to become a job. And I'm like, oh, this was not a job I wanted to do. And so I said, look, I'm not doing that anymore. And I wrote a book. So I wrote a book about how business people can use breathing and the skills of breath work to get present in their business and their life. So if you're in a corporate business and you're like not calm and you're not focused, and you want to get out, there's a really good tool you can use. So if you jump on my website, you'll get the links to it. I think it's available in America. I'm pretty sure you can get it on Amazon or Kindle. And I wrote it because that way people could not hassle me all the time to come and teach them how to do it, which I was doing, and it was a job. So that's how the book happened. And I love to share that stuff because it's changed my life. Like I went from manic and crazy to like this happy, really calm guy that really is in the zone. But I tell you another tool that I think you and your audience will love. Oh, what's going on? Have you ever heard of Jonathan Field and Sparketype?
That sounds vaguely familiar to me.
I will admit I have not. No.
I
guys,
I've heard it maybe once. Yeah,
I'm going to rock your world. I'm going to rock your world. This is the most amazing tool I have ever had. You know how you see personality type stuff? So Jonathan Field, who wrote a book, How to Live a Good Life, that's how I first came across him. And he's got a podcast. He lives in Utah, and he's got the Good Life Project podcast, really beautiful man. And he has this free test that you can do called Sparketype, and it's really well researched. He's an amazing human being. He put a lot of effort into this tool, and what it does is it gives you, instead of saying when you grow up, you should be a fireman or a police officer or whatever, it says these are the things that spark you, and these are the things that drain you. And so there's 10 Sparketypes. So you'll end up with 2. One's your primary and one's your secondary Sparketype. So your secondary Sparketype is the stuff that you do in your life that sort of helps you with your primary. And then there's the anti-Sparketype. That's the stuff that drains you. And when I got this as a concept, it changed my world. And so my primary Sparketype is performer. So like performer, and I love speaking on stage. Not everyone likes it, but I love speaking on stage because my ego gets filled by that, and I know I'm doing good to the world. Like that's a good thing, right? Yep, but my secondary Sparketype is sage, which is teaching people. So I love sharing knowledge because I think that one of the things that I'm privileged to have been put on this world to do is learn a lot of stuff, and I think it's my obligation and my joy to share that knowledge with people. And my anti-Sparketype, which probably won't come as a surprise to anyone who knows me well, is detail. So I am not an organized detail person. Like if you want detail done, you are bypassing me. But like when you know that, right, then it's like, oh, okay, I can live my life knowing this is what lights me up. And so if you're looking for a side hustle, make sure your side hustle aligns with your Sparketype. Because if you want to be a maker, or if you're a performer, or maybe your Sparketype is one of the Sparketypes is to organize information. Another Sparketype is to help people like nurses and doctors in that regard. So it's the coolest tool. It's completely free to use. You can pay for, I think it's $20 US to get the extended version, but like just do the free one. And then it'll make you really aware of what lights your life up. And when I did this, I've actually ended up doing the Sparketype program because I loved it so much. And I just use it for me and my team. I don't coach on it. But it really helps me to understand my team and what lights them up. So I know what to give them in my business. And when I hire people, I hire them for the task at hand. I love it. It's the best tool I've ever used. So no plug from Jonathan there, but I'm just, as a user, I've got to tell you, it's the best thing I've ever done.
Awesome.
I want to check it out. I want to see what mine is.
I would love to do this. I have a feeling you and I have similar ones based on being speakers, but I think it's so valuable to, as a leader, which I know you obviously have a team, to have your team do that and then put them in situations where you know they're going to shine. And I think that takes the next level of a manager and a leader, because it's oftentimes you're just like, well, here's a task, I take it. Like, what? Oh no, wait, what if you actually knew what this person really enjoys doing? Right. And this task actually matches up with that. Like, how cool of an intimate way to be like, I want to see you do your thing, and then they're going to do it well. Like, of course,
and whenever anybody does something with some passion and some intent to it, if you know what makes them tick and what makes them run like that, they're going to give you a better product because they're going to put their actual effort into that. Be
excited,
because they know that that's something that they dig doing. Which is,
I need to tell you. I was going to say, I'll tell you the other really cool thing is, even if you're doing a job that doesn't light you up, and I'll give you a really great example. If you're a barista and your primary Sparketype is to be the performer, then you know that the best part of your job is engaging with the customers. But if your joy is to be the organizer, then you train people in the organization, or you arrange the system. So whatever your job is, you can find something about what lifts you up to really focus on that part. But the reality is, sometimes you're doing a job that you just don't find lights you up. So you've got to find something outside of your business that lights you up. So for your audience, that side hustle, you've got to make sure it aligns with your values and your Sparketype or whatever lights you up. If you don't find that, you're just going to find another job to do outside of your job, and it won't be fun.
Sure. I want to ask you a little bit about speaking, because I've heard Jim's story about speaking as well, his background. Was it something that really came natural to you? Was those first, No. Tell me about those first couple of times and how you've really grown in that.
Well, look, one of the things at BNI that happens is you have a weekly presentation. It's only a minute, but like most people freak out about it. I was so freaked out about it. I used to drive to the meeting, and the meetings are usually 7 a.m. in the morning. So at 6:30, my hands would be sweaty and I'd be dripping with sweat, with fear of the 60 seconds. Like, with 60 seconds, it's nothing that you would have to present. I'm like, my heart would be going boom, 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 boom. And I'd have it all written out, and I'd be standing up there with my, my notes. I'd be holding. It was so bad. And that took me like 3 or 4 months to get over that. And then slowly, because one of the things that I needed to do as a director was speak in front of the room. And what really changed my mindset around speaking was that I know I've got really good information to share with people. And I'm really passionate about helping other people avoid all the mistakes I've made. And I have made a lot. And I don't want anyone to ever have to make a mistake if they don't have to. And so I love to be able to share knowledge that can help avoid those mistakes in life. And when I realized that what I could do on stage was purposefully impact other people and lift them up and give them maybe just one little nugget that would slightly change their life. When I realized I could do that, and that people were interested in what I had to say. And I stopped pretending to be something that I'm not. I've done speaker training, and I learned all about all the stagecraft and all of that. But what I've also learned is that I can forget a lot of that stuff, because if I'm not my authentic self on stage, it just doesn't shine through. So when I'm my real self, sharing real knowledge to help people, I just want to help. Like, you know, you hear about people, like there's been a really big tragedy here in Australia with a bus accident. A lot of people died. It's awful. It's all over the news at the moment. And I was thinking about the first responders and how horrible it would have been and that. And I just thought to myself, you know, we're so lucky to have people, but people who help people don't have to be first responders. You can be on stage that shares one piece of information that changes somebody's business or life that will impact their whole family and their whole community. And you have made that change as a presenter or a speaker or a trainer. You know, all heroes don't have to be in a car or a van with a flashing light. You know, you can do stuff because we're all put on this earth to do our little bit of fabulous for somebody else, right? And my bit of fabulous would not be going into a first responder situation because I don't like all that blood and guts. It wouldn't work for me, but I can help people in their business. And when you help people in their business, you help the community, you help families. It's amazing. And when you realize that as a speaker, it just became a lot easier for me.
Yeah, for sure. I have to ask a little bit of a culture exchange kind of question here because obviously being on a different part of the world as us, we have this kind of idea of, I think, Aussies as being, you know, tough and hardened and stuff like that. And really, I mean, you have crowds here that are very receptive to what you're talking about. Are your crowds generally, are Australians very, you know, receptive to like what you're teaching and you know, does that, is our stereotype right or wrong? It's basically the long and short of what I'm asking. Are people receptive to your message, and what is that moment like when you can tell that they're getting it?
Well, the very first thing I would say is that if you think they're going to be receptive or you think they're not, you're going to be absolutely right. So the first thing is you've got to expect your message to land, because if you think it's not going to land, it won't, because you are the biggest determinant in that. From a general perspective, Australians are pretty laid back. You know, we have a good life in Australia. The weather's pretty good. Even our coldest places aren't that cold. You know, we have it pretty good. We've got lots of space. You know, even though things will always be better, I think we have a pretty good economy. And I think in general, we treat each other pretty well. I mean, there are obviously exceptions to everything, but I think in general, it's a great place to live. And I think we're pretty laid back. And I think most Australians want to see other people have a fair go. That's kind of one of our sort of founding, you know, ideas. Yeah, giving everyone a fair go. You probably heard that on movies. Give him a fair go, mate, or whatever. It's a bit of a stereotype, but it's true. You know, we want everyone to have a fair go. But I tell you what, if you're not nailing it, they'll cut you down.
Yeah. I think, you know, I mean, in America, we don't have as much of, you know, everybody should have a fair go. So that's refreshing to hear that there's a culture that has that, because I think that's the way to go about it. We just need a fair go, mate.
It should be more mainstream. Yeah,
I'm trying.
But I'll tell you what, we also have another thing called the tall poppy syndrome. So we'll give you a fair go, but if you get too big for your boots, then we're chopping you down anyway.
Okay.
So like there's a status point that we're willing to get you to go to, because we're very, like, Australia has a lot less extremes. Like, you know, there's always poverty, and I don't want to dismiss that, but you know, you walk around Australian cities, you don't see the extremes that you do in America. Like the extremes that you see in America blow my mind. Like you see the wealthiest and the poorest in like meters of each other, and I just cannot comprehend that. It's hard for me to understand. But you don't see it to that extreme in Australia, so we're a lot more squished in the middle. We're kind of like all the same, but we don't like people who really stand out, like, you know, real megastars. You know, if you're a megastar, we're going to shut you down. It's a tall poppy syndrome. Yeah, so we'll let you grow to the height of the rest of the poppies, and then that's it. You're cut off.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as kind of a final, as we start wrapping up here, what's the most gratifying part of what you do? Just to kind of to simplify it, of the things that you're focused on. And I have a feeling I know the answer, but I'm just like, what if you really had to bring it down into one? What's the most gratifying part of what you do?
Can I give you a story? Because this,
oh yeah, totally.
So like, as you can see, I wear glasses, and last year I started, this is usually for reading glasses, and I started last year having to wear long distance glasses, and my ego refused to have me wear them all the time. And I was in a shopping center, which I don't go to very often, but I was in this shopping center and I didn't have them on. And I heard this guy, this big booming guy, scream out, "Hey, Braith Bamkin, you stay right there." And I'm like, what? And I could see this guy coming at me. And he was a bit like you, Alan. He had a big bushy beard, probably bigger and bushier than you. And, you know, he's dressed in tradie gear. And I had no idea who this guy was. I couldn't see anyway, apart from anything else. And he ran up to me, he put a big hug around me. And like, he's giving me a really big hug. And I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea who you are. I feel a little bit intimidated. And I'm a big guy, but he was bigger than me. Like I'm over what you call it, 6'1", I think is I'm 100.
That's about right. Yeah.
So he's bigger than me. He's like, you know, 195 centimeters. Like, and I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, he's hugging, he's going, "Oh, I really want to thank you. You changed my life. You changed my life. You changed my life." I'm like, oh, I've got no idea who you are. Anyway, so after all that sort of calmed down, I took a step back and I'm going, oh, wow. And he said, "Oh, you don't recognize me, do you?" Honestly, no, I don't. So I didn't have the beard and I didn't have the big bushy hair, and, you know, it's Mark. And I'm going, Mark. He said, "Mark from," and he told me where he was from. And I went, oh my goodness. He said, "I joined BNI 2 years ago and I couldn't afford the membership and I had to borrow the money from my mother-in-law, and he was an electrician." And he said, "I had lost absolutely everything. My wife was going to leave me. I had 2 kids. My business was really tanking. We'd been in business for a year and BNI was great. But when I came to the new members lunch and you sat with me and you told me that what I need to do is be really clear on who I want to do business with, and you talked me through that process, and that became really obvious that what I really wanted to do is I wanted to work with educational facilities, council facilities, and do work with them." And you know, he got all the certifications that you need to do that, and he really targeted that in his area, and his business exploded. And he said, "If you had not have told me to focus on that, I would have been rapid firing everywhere and I wouldn't have made money." So he just became the go-to guy in that area. And knowing that I changed somebody's life, because it took me, I reckon, probably 5 minutes at a lunch to help him to crystallize in his mind. Like he thought it was the greatest thing to get that focused. But for me, it was just really, it was what I do. And you forget you can make massive impact on people with just little tiny bits of information that you know, but you don't know that, but people don't know what you know, right?
Right.
That's
wow.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, look, to get a lot out of 5 minutes, I mean, I've gotten a lot just out of this conversation here too. Exactly. So this is absolutely wonderful. If people want to go to your website and connect with you and tell them what they all get, you know, over there in terms of courses and stuff.
So braithbamkin.com. And look, most of the stuff on my site is free, and that's kind of who I am. There's a bucket of free stuff. There's a really cool thing that I've got up there. It's a free mini course on how, and it's a good course. Everyone tells me I should charge for it, but you know, it's how to get your business referral ready today. So if you're going out for a side hustle, I would, it's a really great little course for you to get clear in your mind who you're serving and why, and how you communicate that to the people that you want to. It doesn't even have to be referrals. If you want marketing material, you need to understand that. So it's a really cool way of getting your business ready. And I've got all these quick start guides that help you. If you ever want to do your own PR, there's a great quick start guide on how to do your own PR. Because, you know, when you're starting out in the business, you can't afford PR people. So, I mean, I've done buckets of PR over my life. So there's tons of free stuff on there. And, you know, if you want to book me as a speaker, I'm happy to come to America. I love America.
There we go.
Vice versa in Australia.
Yeah, there we go.
Give each other.
You go and speak,
You
go and speak in Australia. I will just come hang out.
Yeah.
And then
perfect.
Talk about the 4 things I know about Australia, and then they will just.
We'll be set.
Yeah.
I came to.
I'll take you to an AFL game.
There we go.
Even better.
There we go. We'll go watch Collingwood and St. Kitts and
Kilda.
Yeah,
damn,
you really killed that joke.
Oh, I know them. I've done my research exclusively on footy teams, and that's it.
Good. Well, this has been great.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us today. And if you want to follow this podcast,
yeah,
you can do that. We are we're called Hustling Sideways. If you haven't figured that out yet, we are on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Snapchat. No, we're not.
No.
We're on TikTok.
I like when you
Instagram. I always forget.
I like when you take over the social
I
part
try
at the
to.
end.
I try to. If you want to be a guest in this show, we are hustlingsideways@gmail.com. You can do it virtually. You can do it right here next to me, and I'll put deodorant on that day, and it'll be great. And follow us, subscribe, give us 5 stars. That's a rule.
That's legally what you. And like you said, we can either meet here or we can meet on the other side of the world.
That's right. We are
Thank you
Global
so much.
Podcast. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time.
And Jim,
Thank you. It's been a blast.
Keep on hustling.
we'll see you next week.